Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for being here with us in Blue Track. So Mr. Nikola Vojtek is a project manager in IT world, and today he will be talking about the importance of collaboration, coordination, and organization. His case study will be related to the changes to software for biometric recognition because of Corona and other external factors. So one very interesting lecture ahead of us. So Nikola, ready when you are.
Okay, thank you, Liana. And yeah, it's very good that I see a lot of people here. So it's really nice. I hope that you will enjoy. Let me share my screen quickly. Okay, so before we start with this case study, let me just briefly introduce myself and the company down. I'm not sure how many of you had a chance to hear or to listen or maybe to work before for the Down company. Basically, we are a company that is developing the services for the digital identity proofing. And of course, we are a multinational company having offices here in Serbia, in Ireland, in USA, also in Canada. And as said, we are developing the services used by many multinational clients, usually banks, but of course some other clients, for digital identity of the users and their validation. And yeah, from my side, I'm the IT project manager in Down. I'm working on developing the onboarding services. Those are the services, for example, when you want to create the account in the bank. Those are all the services that are working in the background and enabling you as a potential client to the bank to go through all the process end to end and to open the account. So in terms of this case study that I will show you here, basically I will first need to tell you a little bit more about our services that we are developing. Just a second to see if this is working. Yes. So from your, let's say, end user perspective, you are the potential client. You want to open the account, as I was saying, in the bank, and the bank is providing you the link to their app. And in that app, you need to do several steps of the validation to actually validate and prove your digital identity, to see that you are the person who is opening the account in the bank. So of course, your first step will be to have some SMS validation verification. You will enter in their application, you will enter your phone number, which is fine. You will receive the SMS, and that's the first step, usually. Then moving on, the bank will ask you, okay, take a selfie, take a picture of yourself to see if you are the real person, if you are who you are presenting yourself, and then you will take a selfie, of course. You will take a picture of your face, and after that, the bank will tell you, let's use one of your documents that you have, usually your passport or your ID or your driver's license, and capture the front and back side of your document, which is fine. And after that, usually there will be some additional validation checks, like maybe the bank will require you to turn on your location to check your geography, and basically that's it. So this is from your user perspective. This is what you're seeing. Now, as you all already know, most of you are also working on some other, let's say, products, and you know that there are a lot of services in the background that is enabling this to happen. First group of those services are the services that are enabling you to capture the face, of course, to capture your document, and to do the SMS validation part. In terms of the SMS validation part, usually that is really standard flow. You just enter your phone number, that's fine. You receive the code, you enter the code, and that's okay. Usually for these type of validations, there are, let's say, third-party services available worldwide that any company can use for these type of validations. Next, for the face capture service, as I said, you need to take a selfie. That's fine. When taking a selfie, you need to make sure that you are, let's say, you have a good background behind you. You need to make sure that you don't take any blurry image or any reflections, which is practically the same with the documents. Just in the case of the documents, most of the documents have the, of course, front and back side. So the user will be guided, to take first the front side of the document, then the back side of the document. And basically, that's it from the user perspective. And as most of you probably, I don't know, created accounts for some of the, for example, for the PayPal maybe, or for any other, any other bank or any other institution, you maybe went through this process. So this is fine. So the question is, what's happening in the background? And in the background, of course, we have first, let's say, one proxy service, one huge client proxy service that is actually taking care of all those data that the user is providing. So this service is processing, of course, the captured images from the users. This service is handling any third-party integration. This service is, of course, sending all the feedback messages that are required for the user. This service is handling the decisions and, of course, calling different other services, which you will see. Now, you have submitted your images of your face, your document, your SMS. The first next thing in the background that is happening is the quality validation. This is the biometric part that is in place. A lot of algorithms in the background. First, those algorithms are checking your facial image to see, measuring your inter-eye distance, to see actually that you're a real person, and a lot of other authentication and validation services in the background. And also next to the face, they are also checking the quality of the document that you provided. For example, all of us have different phones, so maybe some of you is using the iPhone, the latest version of the iPhone. Of course, that your images of the document or even the face, it will be much better than the user who is using some, I don't know, some phone from the older generation, which is also fine, because our services, and of course these kind of services are need to be usable by as much, of course, variety of devices as possible. Once let's say the quality validation process is done and quality validation services are saying, okay, we are good to go with those images that are provided, then there comes the document processing service saying, okay, we now need to take all the data from the documents that you have provided. For example, you have provided your driver's license, front and back. Now, these document processing services are actually extracting from those images all the OCR MRZ data, data from the machine readable zone. Then they are extracting all the data from the visual zone. They are extracting any watermarks that you have, any face if you have, and also any signatures. All those things are then subject to, let's say, to a series of validation and authentication checks. And for example, what is happening also in the background, a lot of these things you are seeing here are happening actually in 1 second during your even capturing of a selfie process, or during your capturing of a document process. So it's really fast. But what is happening in the background? Usually in the background, the services are checking if you are actually the live person, if you are not taking somebody else picture on the paper and then taking a picture of that paper actually. So those services are called liveness services. Usually those are the passive services. Basically, you are not aware that those services are on, but every time that you are taking a selfie, in the background there are multiple frames that are captured, and based on those frames, it is decided if you are a live person or not. Then, of course, we have in our, let's say, portfolio, we have services like black and white. We are checking if you submitted a photocopy of your document, if you are substituting the photo in your document. For example, you could be using the driver's license from your friend, and you can just add your image on the place of the document where the images of your friend is, the person who is using the driver's license. So all those things are taken care by these backend services. And also what is it could be very interesting, for example, in your bank, if you already have account but you want to apply for a different service, that could be a good example for some premium service, and you go through all these process end to end. But since you're applying for the premium service and that service is not available for all of the users, so all of the clients, banking have the option to have let's say a separate database of the images of the person who are allowed to apply for that service, to onboard. And in our case, on this screen that you're seeing, this is called face matching. So basically what our service is doing and what these kind of services are doing, they're actually comparing your image that you submitted during the face capture and document capture, comparing with the database and checking if you're allowed to continue the onboarding or not. So of course, in terms of these authentication services, there are a lot of more, and probably who is in this identity proofing domain, this can be a discussion of probably the whole day, but these are some of the examples I think that will be interesting for you. Now, all these items that are captured, all this data and everything, this is handled by the two main backend services in our case. One, this main service is the Identity TX. Basically, this service is ensuring that the user can authenticate and that the user is validated. And of course, in this service is, as we can say, administrator portal. On the regional and on the client level, clients can configure here different types of validations that I just went through, different types of checks, different rules. And the main onboarding server is actually the main core component of this whole digital onboarding story. Through this onboarding server, the user are actually onboarding in the system. This server contains the rules, so this can be very interesting. For example, the clients are able to say, okay, I have the insurance company and I want only the users who are older than 25 years. They need to submit only the driver's license. I don't accept any other document, and they need to be older than 25 years in order to onboard. So in this case, the rules came into this whole story, and the clients are able to configure the rules. Or on another good case could be, probably some of you know that in the USA you have different versions of the driver's license per states, for example, and then one client could say, okay, I'm accepting only the driver's license from the East Coast, or I don't know, from the West Coast, and basically all this can be accomplished by the rules. Of course, as you can see here, this onboarding component is actually processing all the data, is making a decision based on all the data, so the user can be rejected, approved, of course, or the user can go to the additional review if needed. If something is suspicious, if something is not matching, if some of the rules that are maybe not mandatory but are nice to have are failing, then the user could be that whole onboarding application can go through some additional reviews. And of course, based on the decisions and on those reviews, all the user feedback is starting from this component, moving all through to the client, to the actual user. So this was necessary. This first part was necessary just to understand some of the services, not only that we are developing, but the services that are behind of every digital identity process. And now, of course, as you can see, these services are complex, working in the background. A lot of different variations are possible, a lot of different integrations. So it's very important that all the teams here that are working on them have a good collaboration, good understanding, and from my perspective, also good planning and a good timing when these services are delivered. Now, 2.5 years ago, we had a COVID situation, of course, but there could be many others. Before we dive into that, let me just jump into the team who is actually needed for these services. And just before I go through some of the teams, probably you have those teams in a company as well. These are, of course, generic generic units, generic teams that are actually required to deliver this. Basically, I was this morning when I was driving to the office, and I think this will be a good audience and a good moment to just share one more story that is not part of this presentation. But when I was driving to the office, I was listening to the radio, and the woman who was host of that radio morning show, I don't know, she had one good, maybe some of you also listened to that radio this morning. She had a good person. She was interviewing some person from the IT industry actually, and her first question was actually asked, okay, what do we need to be a developers, a programmers to work in the IT industry, because that is now the most popular, job and everything. And then the person who was the speaker, who was actually providing the answers, who was from the IT industry, he actually corrected her, which is good. And I think this also slide is about that. Not only the programmers and developers are actually, the synonym for the IT world today. As you can see, in case of our services, there are a lot of things that needs to be developed just for the user to see that end-to-end journey, just to see that front side, the client side. And in terms of teams that are working in our house for these services, of course, we have engineers. Definitely, they are one of the main strengths here. But also, we have the research team. That they are doing a huge job in delivering and defining the algorithms for all these biometric checks that are happening. Also, next to them, we have, of course, the team who is in charge for making sure that we have all the infrastructure in place that is needed for the development, for the trials, for the performance testing, for the delivery, for everything. Then we had a customer support team. That team is definitely important to take care of all the existing clients, their needs, to see what are their requests, requirements, and to see how they can help them by providing some new versions of the services. Of course, we have the cloud service team, the team who is planning actually all the deployments on the regional level to all the clients, no matter if they are, of course, on-prem or on cloud. And we have the data team. Also, they are not, let's say, part of the. They are not the programmers. Let's say like that. But basically, that team is responsible for conducting all the trials, testing all the new algorithms. Because a lot of these biometric services, as you saw, as you are aware, a lot of those services require not multiple, but many documents, many faces, many of them to test actually and to confirm that those algorithms are working. And lastly, of course, we have the commercial team, who is also, let's say, not only monitoring all these things, that who is also communicating to the potential clients, offering those new services, offering new algorithms that are introduced. So basically, this is the whole picture of the team who is usually behind the development of these services. And definitely, it is very important, not only especially in these, let's say, specific situations like some crisis or something like it was a COVID, but only in the regular periods when you don't have a lot of those external disturbances. it's very important for those teams to collaborate and to work together, communicate, and to plan together to deliver these complex services. In case of the COVID, this was very specific, of course, and because COVID, as you all know, COVID introduced some of the measures that people needed to take and to follow, and how that reflected to our services. Well, basically, if you can see on the left, the whole let's call it architecture of our services. But if you can see this whole picture, firstly, the whole COVID situation affected the quality validation service. And what we needed to do because of those all new measures and the COVID situation, our research team, it all started from them. They needed to update and to develop some new algorithms. And those algorithms were related to the medical face mask, the simple thing. The first thing that was introduced with this COVID, and basically it was related to this medical face mask detection. And if you can see this picture, and if you recall the story that I was telling you about the biometrics and everything, you will see that now the human face is not like it is mine right now, or the face from Liliana. Now we have masks, and it's much more difficult for the biometric, algorithms to recognize you, to recognize that you are the person whose picture is also on the driver's license, for example. You don't have your medical face mask on your driving license. So, as I said, all started with our research team first. What they needed to do, they needed to gather new samples. That was the first thing, and of course our data team was helping them. And as I said, this is the story of the complete team collaboration. There are many examples, and as you will see, basically each of the steps that one team is doing here, it will depend, or it will rely on some other team. It's always the case like that. So they needed to gather new samples. They needed to train the new algorithms. That's okay, that's fine. Then, based on the trainings and everything, multiple trials, internal trials, and the simulations, they needed to define some new thresholds for the faces to pass, of course. And then they needed to organize the human trials to see how those algorithms will behave in the real life scenarios. And after that, they needed to the release, but basically this is the release of only one algorithm in this whole picture. Based on that release of just one algorithm, then engineering team needed to step in, take that release, of course, of the algorithm and incorporate that into the existing services and do all the integration, testing, checks, confirmation to see if this new algorithm will not break anything. Once that was done, of course, once that was tested, confirmed and everything, the engineering team released officially the new service with the new algorithm, new version of the service, of course, how everything, following, prepared the release notes, issued everything, but that was not the end. Now I could say now it comes let's say the harder part. A lot of clients are not well in this whole story about the identity proofing using different services in the background. Not all clients have the same versions and the same services, and it is not standardized by the client. That's not feasible, because a client who is, for example, the Philippines bank is using the different service for the document processing from the client who is, for example, I don't know, Argentinian insurance company. So now the customer support team from our side, because of all this change that was introduced by COVID, needed to work with all the clients together with, of course, our cloud service team, also with the commercial, and to define what are the versions that they are using of their services and which of these services could be upgraded to the new version to support this medical face mask detection. And that was, let's say, it could be said that was the trickiest part, because of course, at first our engineering team only introduced the support and went through the testing and all the regression and everything using the latest version of the services. Then we needed to circle back to see what are the other combination of the versions. For example, combination of the, on one side, document processing service, on the other side, quality validation service, on the, some authentication service, and to see what are all the combinations that we needed to cover with the testing and validation, and making sure that this, as you can see on this slide, this, it could be said, small change, it's only one change in the one of the many algorithms, to see if this one change will not break anything. And basically, once that was done, and it was done, to be honest, really quickly, and that showed up actually that we had at that moment, in that situation, we had very good operational agility. I know this is these are the words that we can see a lot, even on trainings, on some LinkedIn social media posts, from the agile coaches or but basically it's really good if the team can experience this operational agility and the whole organization, and that they are aware of that they understood what they did. They actually, in this case, we actually responded very fast to this change, considering all the steps that we needed to do. And I think this was really great. And the most important thing here was the communication between the teams. That's the most important, because each of the team members and each of the teams are realizing that what is their part in the whole chain, what they need to do, and if they don't do their part, the other teams will be blocked. They cannot move. And this also showed that we had a good, let's say, system robustness in this case by changing only one algorithm. And from our client's perspective, they saw that they can rely actually on our services, and they can rely on our teams, because this is the story of our teams. They can rely on our teams to respond to the change and to deliver what is necessary actually for their business to be able to run smoothly, to continue to run smoothly, even in the COVID situation. And in our case, in our internal case, obviously that this is the phrase that also we all know, but obviously in our case, we understood, all the teams that are needed to be there for this change to happen. Now, this was one of the stories for the medical face mask detection and how that changed our services and how we needed to respond, quickly. But of course, there could be, many other, let's say, global changes that could affect all the service providers in this industry. One more, for example, could be related to the changes in the definition of the personal data. For now, you have, of course, in terms of the GDPR and PII, you have for now a limited number of personal data that is protected and that cannot be shared. And when you are in this digital identity proofing business, definitely this is something that is, legal, part of the regulation, mandatory to take care of. And for now, if you recall, for example, for the document processing service, we have our services that are reading through all your data from the passport, all your data from the identity cards, from the driver's license, whatever card you have and you need for the onboarding. And if something is changed in terms of the definition, what is the personally protected data, that can be, I don't know, in the next few months, maybe next year, we would need to go again through all this process, changing maybe one piece in the whole picture, but we need to go through all this process, making sure that all other services are working fine with that change, and that change is actually delivered to the clients. So basically that is it. This is all that I had for you for this presentation. I hope that this was interesting. It is not let's say a standard, maybe a product story. This is just one real life example. I hope that you found this very interesting. Maybe you are also familiar with some of these aspects that I just covered. So yeah, Diana, if there is anyone with a question or discussion, we can, we can take some questions here. Also, we can discuss further later in the afternoon.